Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2024 debate for the 5th District Senate seat. Our incumbent, Stephen Meredith, being challenged by Thomas Ballinger for the 5th District Senate seat. This is the first time ever for the messenger from Meade County, and we are excited to host this event. Tonight we will begin with a few introductions, and Mark will lead us off through the program and bring us. Mark Burnett will be the moderator tonight, and we will also have we got a little bit of a crowd. If you look around, you will see that we have all of the folks that are in the room and both candidates up on stage. So I'm glad you tuned in with us tonight. That's kind of crazy because I'm trying to produce and talk and do all this magic at the same time. So enjoy the show. Mark, I turn it over to you to get our program started.
Okay, thank you, Steve. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Meade County High School auditorium. We want to thank Meade County High School for hosting us here and allowing us to put this debate on. We are, again, as Steve mentioned, he's already mentioned who our candidates are, and we do have a full schedule. But I do want to let you understand, let you know how the debate rules are going to work a little bit. So as we move through the debate, before we started, we flipped a coin. Mr. Ballinger won the toss, and he has elected to go second. So he will give his. So Mr. Meredith will give his opening statement first, and then it'll alternate to Mr. Ballinger. And then as we go through the questions, the next question will go to Mr. Ballinger to answer first, and then Mr. Meredith to respond. So it'll go back and forth like that through the questions. At the closing statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we will do the opposite. So the candidate who went first will then the opposite will go. So in this situation, Thomas Ballinger will give his closing statement first, and then Mr. Meredith will give his closing statement last. We are scheduled for 1 hour, and as I said, we have a pretty full agenda, and we'll get right in. So first up on our is for the invocation, and that will be given by Mr. Stephen Meredith.
Sorry, run through an audio problem.
I ran to turn on the audio setting. So, dear Heavenly Gracious Father, I thank you for bringing us together tonight on this debate stage to educate, promote, and ensure that the civic process and the political process is in place for our nation. I thank both candidates and I ask for your blessings over them. Tonight, I hope that we have a wonderful debate that explores many subjects important to the citizens of Meade County and the 5th District. I ask that you pray over both candidates as they move forward through the election process, and to all the constituents that vote and support for their efforts. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Okay, thank you, Steve. The next up is our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Judge Executive Troy Koch.
Well, I don't need to say to everyone, please stand, and you already have your hands over your heart, so let's go ahead and turn and make allegiance to our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. All right. Next up on our speaking will be Miss Nancy Tate.
Thank you, Mark. So, as you know, a joint resolution of Congress that was approved on October 1st of 1962 designated May 15th of each year as Peace Officer Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. This observance pays tribute to local, state, and federal peace officers who have died or been disabled in the line of duty. Our brave Kentucky law enforcement officers deserve our gratitude each and every day, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice deserve to be honored and remembered every single day as well. As the daughter of a man who was in law enforcement for 55 years, this is very near and dear to my heart. So let's take an extra time this week to let their families and their law enforcement brothers and sisters know that we care. So if you would, let's take a moment of silence for our police officer Memorial Day today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I see that I have already reviewed the rules, so I apologize for getting out of order, but we will continue to move on. So at this point, we are ready for our opening statements. And again, Mr. Ballinger won the toss and chose to go second. So that will, Meredith, Stephen Meredith, would you please open us up with the first statement?
We want to certainly appreciate being here tonight and seeing some great friends and great faces. You both bring back some great memories, and I appreciate you being here. Also, certainly appreciate the opportunity and privilege to serve Lee County and Fifth District over the last 8 years. It's truly been a blessing. To reflect back in 2017, which was my first term, our state was in a horrendous financial shape. If we had been a corporation, we would have filed for bankruptcy. It was that bad. No, we had not funded our pension system, we had not funded our public school systems. The whole system around us was collapsing. But the election of Governor Bevin and getting a simple majority in legislature, we were able to turn that around. Remember, very short order that we passed became a right to work state. We also repealed the prevailing wage, which is nothing more than hidden tax in rural communities. We reduced red tape. Remember Governor Bevin's red tape initiative, and we did away with thousands of silly rules. Reformed our tax structure while reducing taxes. We created thousands of new jobs. And nowhere's that more evident than when we came with new court and everything that's happening here. When we committed $40 million in tax incentives to bring new court here, very proud of that. We fully funded our pensions for the first time in over a decade. And every year since then, we have fully funded our pensions, put in an additional amount to make up the deficit that this risking there. We provided funding for our public schools, which have not been fully funded for over a decade. And this last budget that we just passed, the new Commissioner of Education said that this is the best education budget that he can remember. We brought high-speed internet to rural Kentucky, and that may sound like a small thing, but that's a big thing. Governor initially wanted $50 million for that program. We said, no, $350 million is what we need. We started to rebuild our community infrastructure, and we'll continue to do that. We brought financial stability to the state that we had not seen for literally decades. We're truly in the best financial shape that this state has ever been in. Not that we still have some significant challenges ahead of us, but we are solid, as evidenced by our rainy day fund. Close to $4 billion. 2017, we had 4 days of cash available for emergency situations. Now it's one of the strongest rainy day funds in the nation. And so strong, we were able to get almost $3 billion of that funding to new projects throughout Kentucky. We've improved our credit rating as well, which saves us thousands of dollars in interest costs. But one of the things I'm probably most proud of is that we're the strongest pro-life state in the United States. Had not done it by myself, but all the lives and relationships. And I think I had those relationships in our legislature. I see my friend and colleague Nancy Tate here. You do things for other people. I have those relationships. And as evidenced by being the chairman of the Health Services Committee. And I've got a unique role that I'm also co-chair of government contract review. So thanks speaks to the credibility I have within my Senate and with my colleagues. I look forward to hopefully 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Ballinger, your opening statement, sir.
Yes, my name is Thomas Ballinger. I'm disabled veteran, and our veterans, one of the things that I truly understand for is our disabled veterans. Our veterans' affairs are out of order. It's taken a long time to get the facility built in Bowling Green. I find it ironic that it goes into effect or be completed this year, an election. But saying that, I will stand behind the veterans 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts. Infrastructure-wise, the state of Kentucky, especially this district, has some big issues in our infrastructure. Water is one in this county here. Water is just about an issue in Breckenridge County. They've got a tower that's leaking very bad right now. We have to put a lot of our extra funds that we can get a hold of into our infrastructure, because if we don't have a strong infrastructure, we would lose it. Right now, with the water issue here, the GDP in this county is looking to drop about 2%. We have to spread the wealth out among all 5 counties, not just one. So with the, I'll reiterate what Mr. Meredith said, pro-life, proud to be part of that. Point blank. The Second Amendment, we are one of the strongest Second Amendment states. No red flag laws. 0. Our guns are ours. And I will stand beside that all the way. Sportsmen's rights. That's another thing that's not mentioned much. Sportsmen's rights. The sportsmen are a voice in all 5 counties, and they will have a voice in the Senate. The Game and Fish is responsible for a little over, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $160 million total revenue that they generate through the state, i.e. taxation for foods, hotels, license sales, equipment sales, and stuff like that. That is a generator for revenue. Teachers' rights, our teachers' retirement. Our teacher retirement program is still broke. It had a 10% loss last year in the debt meeting. So that means they have to do 20% this year to make up. Now, the legislation did drop some dollars into that fund. Even with them dropping them dollars into that fund, for every dollar that the teacher puts into retirement, we're still paying 2. It needs to be a 1-in-1 situation. If we were a corporation, we wouldn't allow that. The education system through the state, in our district especially, we have got some of the better ACT scores across the board, but it's only like 5%. We need to expand that to 15 to 20%. You've got an organization in Bowling Green called Gap Academy. We need to have more kids in that program, and they are willing to take applicants from this area. They just don't get the applicants. Those individuals, young men and young women there, they are some of the top 5% in the country when they come out of the UK or wherever they decide to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballinger. Okay, as we transition to our first question, Mr. Ballinger, this question will be for you, based on our point of view. So the first question, the topic is the economy. Under President Biden's administration, the United States has experienced significant year-over-year inflation increases. What measures taken by the Kentucky State Senate do you support in addressing this issue? And if elected, what specific actions would you prioritize over the next 4 years to mitigate inflation's impact? Oh, sorry. The economy, under President Biden's administration, the United States has experienced significant year-over-year inflation increases. What measures taken by the Kentucky State Senate do you support in addressing this issue? And if elected, what specific actions would you prioritize over the next 4 years to mitigate inflation's impact in Kentucky?
Inflation is a bad thing for the state of Kentucky right now. Rising cost of products, goods, transportation, everything across the board. We can't address at our state senate level the federal taxes, but we can cut our taxes on the lower end. I also suggest is dropping some of the fuel tax. Right now, the Senate has an suggest that we drop that. Diesel fuel's always right at $4 a gallon. You've got truckers now and transportation companies that need $3 a mile to even make a living at, and they're getting offered $1.50. That's one reason that your transportation is getting up so high, because so many truckers are getting out. Fresh produce. Fresh produce is catching a lot of taxation coming into the state. Produce is something that we all like. We all like fresh produce. It's a good thing. Canned foods aren't as bad. Fresh meats are the same way. I applaud our last ag commissioner for taking up with the giving grants for new slaughterhouses, because that opened up probably 21, 22 slaughterhouses across the state. So now people can get their own meats slaughtered, and it's considerable savings, because I do one every year, and it's about half the cost when you raise your own. And if you bought any steaks or any hamburger meat, it's high if you buy it at the grocery store. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Meredith, same question.
Thank you, appreciate the question, and I think the most significant action we've already started, and that's reducing personal income tax. You know, since 2018, we have reduced personal income tax 3 times. For people in Meade County, based on their median income, that's putting over $100 a month back in the pockets of working families. That's significant. And as we continue to work towards zero-based personal income tax, we'll see that grow even more. When it's all said and done, we will literally be able to put close to $4,000 a year back in the pockets of working families in Kentucky. And I don't know anything we do more for them that. As far as what's causing inflation, too much government spending, it's a hidden tax on people because the government went rampant during the COVID situation, and we have to control that. And we can start by not accepting so much federal funding from our government. I'm chairman of the government contract review, and I tell you, yesterday we saw, I think, 850 some contracts, and it was in excess of like $49 million. A lot of that 100% federal funding that we don't need. Secondly, when we accept federal funding, it locks us into federal mandates that we really don't want. So I really want to look at a program that's going to be more selective in how we accept federal funding to make sure we're doing it for the right purposes and it's not inflationary as it has been.
Thank you. Mr. Ballinger, any rebuttal?
Yes. I think the Senate's going the right way, and the House. I mean, my opponent there is talking about a lot of issues there that are dealt with 38 senators and 100 representatives. There's a lot of different people that's got their hands in different pots, but no one person's got his hand in all the pots. The personal income tax is a good thing, and that will put money back. But when you're paying a high sales tax on everything, it will negate each other. You're getting taxed on several additional items over the last 2 years. You have to control your taxation across the board, not just on one side. And that is what I call getting rid of some of the regulation. You know, they're telling you what we've got to spend. Right now, you get about 17 cents out of your dollar. And you kind of get them with the state and federal.
Okay. Mr. Meredith?
Mr. Boyd, I've done exactly that. You know, in order to get these tax cuts that we give to working families in Kentucky, we got to broaden the basic sales tax, send some more tax support, like tattoos, cosmetic surgery, lobbying efforts, and you'd have to spend presently over $18,000 on these new taxable services before the sales tax of that service would be greater than the income tax reduction that you receive. That's how you grow economy. By reducing personal income tax, we give people more discretionary income, and they go out and buy things. That's what we do. And that creates jobs in Kentucky, which in turn creates more tax revenue for us. That's how you build a strong economy. That's one of the principal reasons we've had so many new jobs available to us in Kentucky.
Thank you. We're going to move on to another question. So question number 2, this will be for Mr.
Meredith.
I believe, to answer first. Veterans in Kentucky. Kentucky boasts a proud tradition of military service with a significant number of its citizens volunteering for the armed forces. Additionally, many military veterans from other states choose to retire in Kentucky after experiencing life in the Commonwealth. What specific initiatives would you advocate for in the Kentucky Senate to support and benefit our military veteran citizens?
Well, thank you, and I think we're already doing that, and so we can build on it. I'm a member of the Veterans Military Affairs and Public Protection Committee, and our goal is to be the most veteran-friendly state in the United States. And I think we've taken a lot of steps towards that already. You look at the current budget, and we budgeted $375,000 to the Veteran Service Organization for grants. We've budgeted $400,000 for protecting homeless vets. We've budgeted $640,000 for the National Guard Burial Fund. We've budgeted $33 million for Veteran Service Organizations so they can operate those. We've budgeted $238,000 for our Veteran Service Organization Honor Burial Guard and the new Veterans Nursing Home in Bowling Green. The budget for that this current biennium is $28 million. That's going to be a 90-bed facility which we approved back in 2022, and it's the first one in the western part of our state. We've also budgeted $2 million to USA Cares. So we're making an investment in our veterans. We want people to be here. And I hate to be redundant, but again, the personal sales tax is a big part of that, because you can look at Clarksville, Tennessee, or Fort Campbell, and when they leave service there, they're not coming to Kentucky, they're going to Clarksville because of zero income tax. So by eliminating that, it's going to help recruit and retain veterans in Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Ballinger, same question.
Yes, with the veterans organizations, what you have to look at, and I'm going to go back to Senate Bill 39, or House Bill 39. It come out of the House, it was a 20% mandate on legal representations through lawyers. When it got to the Senate, it got flipped upside down. And it could get up to 90% by the time it come out of the Senate subcommittee. And everybody said, oh, I voted for it. There was one veteran there that stood up, and there was a veteran from Bowling. He killed him. And we really appreciate that, because new veterans coming out, this era right here, a lot of these new veterans have served most of their career, if not all of it, overseas. So you have to be able to stand beside those veterans. There's over 600 homeless veterans in the state of Kentucky, and about 20% of that is that younger generation, because they were having so much problems getting their veterans benefits. It's a monster, and it needs to be simplified. The Veterans Affairs, the $300 million that he talked about, or I had 330 million, so whatever that was an operating cost. When you go to some of these VA clinics, and I go to one, it's just an aid station. It's not really anything but an aid station. I have seen veterans come in there and be homeless, and they cannot help them. We have to establish a connection between the veterans and being able to resource them to where they need to go. And as far as the income tax, we're losing a lot of veterans going to Tennessee. I suggest we cut it from veterans right off the bat and let the other work it out as it's going. These veterans have paid their dues. Don't have to pay it again.
Mr. Meredith, rebuttal?
Well, first, regarding medical services for veterans, that's provided by the Veterans Administration, which is federal government. We can't influence that a whole lot. But you very specifically mentioned of House Bill 39, and the purpose of that bill was to protect veterans' benefits, because there's predatory agencies out there that are going to veterans and say, we can help you get your benefits, and by offering that assistance, they're charging them usury fees. I mean, sometimes 2 or 3 times what the veterans will draw in the beginning. The purpose is to be able to protect that, put a cap on it. It did pass the House. It came to our Veterans Military Affairs and Public Protection Committee and passed unanimously, with one no vote. That's because of the situation with the attorneys. Because again, if attorneys have to get involved, it's a different situation. And that's the provision that was made. Unfortunately, when it was passed in the Senate with a new amendment to it, it did not pass in the House. I think it's very unfortunate, because this was designed to protect veterans' benefits, not to take them away. A couple of things we've done to help veterans is passed House Bill 30, which is the new Veteran Suicide Assistance Program. We know how tragic that is for veterans and how many women every day. But this is an effort to coordinate all the services in the state of Kentucky to provide benefits and assistance to veterans that are faced with this kind of situation. Another thing we've done is to try to help veterans be employed in Kentucky. One specific bill we have is House Bill 444, which provides service credit for veterans who want to become electricians. That's how we
Mr. Ballinger.
Yes. And the Senate Bill 39, or House Bill 39, I'm sorry, it did pass through the Senate, through the Senate amendment. But instead of the 20%, which is the federal mandate, and that's what was asked for when it come out of the House, it was 80 to 90%. So they actually passed that to where the lawyers should take 80 to 90% of the service members' back pay. That's wrong. Some of them service members will be out of work 6 to 9 months. They're looking at that back pay to try to make up on some bills, to try to catch up, to try to get established. Because that transition from military to civilian life is a hard transition. You've got to go to finding another job, turning around, finding, residents, healthcare providers, schools. It's a very hard transition for the veterans. And going from a 20% mandate to a 90% mandate benefits nobody but the lawyers.
Okay, thank you both for your answers. We will move on to question number 3. And this one will be for Mr. Ballinger to start. So Mr. Ballinger, the next topic is voting rights. A Washington Post article highlighted that under President Biden's leadership, there has been a significant increase in illegal migration, with nearly 6 million individuals crossing the U.S.-Mexico border since 2021. Some U.S. Municipalities are now are allowing non-U.S. citizens to vote in their local elections. Kentucky is considering a constitutional amendment to prohibit non-citizens from voting in any election in the state. Do you support this amendment? Why? And additionally, what further measures would you advocate for in Kentucky regarding this issue?
I do not support that. Illegal immigrants are not a part of this country, and they do not have voting rights. They have not earned it. They do not deserve it. Point blank. And as far as the second part of the question again?
The second part of the question is, do you support the amendment?
No, I do not support that at all. They are illegal. They're in this country illegally. I do not support a measure that will reward somebody for coming into this country illegally. Illegally means they broke the law. They need to get sent back.
And lastly, the last part of it, I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think I might have misguided you, so I'll give you a couple of seconds here. What further measures did you take what would you advocate for in the Kentucky Senate regarding illegal non-citizen voting?
Non-citizen voting, number one, I know they're a tremendous workforce, but I think we need to prevent their ability to get a driver's license or make stricter laws to where you have to have what we would call our real ID that the state is going to. No way, shape, or form should illegal aliens, but all that's done is just farming Democrats by letting millions and millions in. Thank you.
Mr. Meredith?
Do you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely. So, the topic is voting rights. A Washington Post article highlighted that under President Biden's leadership, there has been a significant increase in illegal migration, with nearly 6 million individuals crossing the U.S.-Mexico border since 2021. Some U.S. municipalities are now permitting non-U.S. citizens to vote in their local elections. Kentucky is considering a constitutional amendment to prohibit non-citizens from voting in any election in the state. Do you support this amendment? Why? And additionally, what further actions or measures would you advocate for in the Kentucky Senate regarding this issue?
I would support that amendment because I don't think illegal aliens have rights in the United States other than the constitutional rights of personal safety. And I think we've already taken some steps to control that. As far as voting in Kentucky, you have a photo ID or something that's issued by the government. So we're taking those restrictions. Another thing that we did this last session was pass a bill that we have people coming up from Tennessee that are getting services for addiction that we can't document what their citizenship is. So we've asked the Medicaid program to stop paying for those type of services. So we've got to get control of our situation. As a matter of fact, I think there are more like 7 million people that are illegals in this nation, and certainly have to take control of it. We've always supported actions to prevent sanctuary cities in Kentucky, and we need to strengthen that. Well, there's a place for immigrants in America if we do it the legal way, but illegal, no, they don't have any rights, and we shouldn't be coddling those people who are trying to take advantage of our generous benefit system here in Kentucky. We have to control it.
Thank you. Mr. Ballinger, rebuttal?
Illegal immigrants are here wrong. They're illegal. That's why they call it illegal. They have no rights. That's my stance.
Any further from you, Mr. Meredith? Anything like that? All right, we'll move on to question number 4. This question, we will start with Mr. Meredith. Yes, Mr. Meredith, sorry. I just want to make sure I was keeping myself straight. This will be on drug addiction. So question 4 is, the ongoing influx of opioids, particularly fentanyl, into the United States, combined with the significant illegal production of methamphetamine within Kentucky, it poses a critical challenge to Kentucky. What specific initiatives would you support to eliminate opioids from our communities and provide treatment for individuals addicted to these substances?
Well, good, I think we take some big steps in that, and I want to give a shout out to Attorney General Daniel Cameron and to Russell Coleman both. They've done a great job in controlling illegal drugs coming into Kentucky, particularly with Russell Coleman's background as a former federal attorney. He can tell you more stories about that. You may remember during his campaign, he mentioned about how deaths in rural Kentucky increased by 69% as a result of this. So we certainly want to give law enforcement the assets and resources they need to control that. Need better cooperation with the FBI, state police, city of Louisville. Something like the idea that Daniel Cameron had of having a state police post in Louisville to focus on that and put as many resources as we can into it. And certainly the addiction side of it, we're pouring millions of dollars into addiction recovery. I heard a figure yesterday about the number of drugs that we are giving out to counteract the reaction from this. And it's amazing. It's a burden on society that we have to control, and it takes a coordinated effort between law enforcement, our judicial system, and certainly our social services department. It just doesn't go away by itself. So we have to focus more on that.
Okay. Mr. Ballinger.
The opioid epidemic, that's a bad epidemic. But the biggest problem is I've been with officers and they'll arrest somebody for manufacturing methamphetamine, and literally they will get out of jail faster than the officer can fill the paperwork. And you ask why? Don't have enough jail space. Butler County's 12%, 15% over. Beaver Dam, it's over. You know, there is no space in our jails. So they've got together and tried to do a 3-county jail. The state had the land. It was an old boys camp. It's got an ideal facility already in place for the opioid treatment, but they need to build a jail to where they can hold the people accountable and they don't beat the officers out of the courthouse and then laugh at it because the judge can't do anything. There's nowhere to put them. So until we build and hold them accountable, they're just going to do it and beat the officers out of jail. And I've literally seen them standing in the parking lots at City of Martin. They know there's no space in the jails. So until we hold them accountable, they will not quit. They'll just keep pushing. And the officers are starting to get wore out. It's getting pretty bad because I've got several friends that are officers and they're getting tired of seeing the personnel keep leaving the courthouse before he ever gets the paper done because they cannot house them in our jailing system. Our jails are broken and need to be fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Meredith, do you have any rebuttal? or further comment?
Well, in theory, that sounds good, but as Representative Tate will tell you, we spend 60% of our budget on education, 20% on the medical assistance program, 10% on incarceration already. Not only is 10% of our budget to cover every program in Kentucky. If we're looking at building more prisons, more jails, I'm not sure where those funds are going to come from without costing other programs. I think there's more effective ways of doing this. Certainly with more security on our borders, we're going to take care of part of that. And that's probably the first focus because we know that's where that's coming from. And I'd like to see the focus on that first. More incarceration is a very expensive proposition.
Mr. Ballinger.
It is a very expensive proposition, but if your jail is built right, your state inmates are getting paid by the state. So that can offset your federal inmates and the people that are already been convicted can actually be used as to generate that type of money. Grayson County jails, it runs in the black, it's not in the red. So it is a possible way to do it, especially with the land that they don't have to acquire. And it's already got the drug treatment facility already set there. So there is an ideal opportunity to build that complex and bring 250 to 350 jobs to a very rural area.
Thank you. Question 5 is for Mr. Ballinger to start. This topic is on health care. Given that Kentucky is predominantly rural, with only 32.5% of the approximately 4.5 million residents living in cities with populations greater than 26,000 people, the state faces unique healthcare challenges. What initiatives would you support to help Kentuckians manage their healthcare costs? Moreover, what steps would you propose to give families and their doctors more autonomy in making decisions about basic medical procedures that could improve their quality of life?
Okay, Kentucky's healthcare is run under a CON program, a certificate in need. If any organization wants to build a hospital, a clinic, a radiology, anything with medical, it has to come through that program. And that limits a lot in the rural areas. So most of the real rural areas have only got one office. It is a way of monopolizing our health care. There's states out there that have gotten rid of certificate of need and went to just a minor where they did senior living facilities and stuff and ambulatory care. And their healthcare costs dropped by over 25%. Right now, a lot of the doctors are looking at, they literally are mandated by the insurance company what they can do. If we don't get control of the insurance companies, to give you for instance, Humana's profit last year was $22 million. And some people say, well, the hospital's got to make money too. I understand that. Owensboro Health Center, healthcare, they made over 1.6. They're making money. We just got to hold their feet to the fire and get the price down.
Mr. Meredith.
There's a real economy in healthcare, not just in Kentucky, but the United States with urban versus rural. Urban communities are making money, but not rural Kentucky. And Bill certificate of need in Kentucky will be the death knell for the majority of rural hospitals in Kentucky. And not only does that impact from a healthcare standpoint, but many of them, it's a major employer for their communities. They cannot survive. Currently, a rural hospital will serve 75 to 90% of the patients with Medicare and Medicaid. Neither one of those programs pay for the cost of care. When I talk charges, cost. So how they survive, it's a failing business model. Well, they're surviving a small percentage of commercial pay insurance that they do get. If you Bill certificate of need, you're going to have for-profit providers come into rural communities and see only their commercial pay insurance, and you will lose your rural hospitals. That's not how you reduce costs. And by the way, Kentucky has the lowest cost of any state in the surrounding area. If you want to improve health care in Kentucky, the first thing you do is focus on the administration of it. We're spending 30 cents of every dollar just on administration of health care. One of the bills that I've had the last 7 years, and I'll do it again next year, is reducing the number of managed care organizations that administer our Medicaid program. give you an example of how that works. If you're a home builder and government contracts you to build 1,000 homes, but they say, oh, by the way, you gotta work with 6 different subcontractors, and they're gonna have 6 different set of rules. So you may put in Delta plumbing, and the other one will say, no, we don't want Delta, we're not gonna pay for that, so you gotta use something else. That's a weak example for healthcare, but that's exactly what happens. I asked the doctor how much time she's spending on healthcare, just administration, 2 hours a day. If we could cut the number of managed care organizations we have in Kentucky to 3, we can reduce it by an hour a day. A doctor sees a patient every 15 minutes. One physician sees 1,000 patients more. So you multiply that per physician in Kentucky, it's a significant change. And bear in mind that, again, 40% of the population lives in rural Kentucky, only 17% of our physicians are there.
Thank you. Mr. Ballinger, rebuttal?
Yes, with the certificate meeting, I agree, 30% is going to administration. But that's 30% that's not being administrated correctly, not being administrated wisely. The rural health care will hold on. My opponent has tried to regulate Medicare for the last 8 years. There's 14 bills that he's supported or endorsed to regulate some type of health care. I do not want regulation. The less you regulate me, the more I like it. And there's a lot of people in this district and in this state that like that. There is no room anymore for regulation. Too many laws. You can adjust the insurance companies, and what my opponent is trying to do is take a model off Tennessee. Well, right now, our Medicaid program is sitting 22nd in the nation. Tennessee's 44. Why do we want to go backwards?
Mr. Meredith?
I don't know where he's getting information from, because every bill that I have filed in my 8 years in the Senate has been to reduce the administrative burden for health access to care, and I can document that time and time again. A simple bill we had this time was to allow pharmacists to provide vaccinations for kids down to the age of 5, which in my opinion has been critical of. That's because 51 counties out of 120 don't have pediatricians in Kentucky. Again, 40% of the population lives up there, only 17% of primary care. How are parents supposed to get their kids vaccinated? And it costs a whole lot more to take care of a kid who hasn't been vaccinated than one that has, and the risk is minimal. So again, my focus is on reducing bureaucracy for healthcare and improving access to care and healthcare at the same time.
Thank you. So, our next question will be for Mr. Meredith to start. And this is on education. A recent U.S. News and World Report article placed Kentucky at 32nd in the nation in its 2023 Best State Rankings for Education. Furthermore, reading proficiency among Kentucky's 4th graders has dropped to its lowest level since the state began participating in the National Assessment of Educational Progress. In the upcoming November election, Kentucky voters will decide on a constitutional amendment to potentially allow state funding for non-public education. This measure would amend This measure will amend the Kentucky Constitution to state that the General Assembly may provide financial support for the education of students outside the system of common schools. What is your stance on this amendment, and how do you propose to address the broader challenges facing Kentucky's education system?
Of course, I do support the amendment, because it's the taxpayer's dollar. They should be the ones to decide what their education system is going to look like. But I would caution people that in theory is one thing, practical application is another. If this passes, we're going to bring in over 600,000 students that are in the private school systems now that we're going to accept some financial responsibility for. How are we going to pay for that? I think it can exist in the same space, but we have to assure the public school system that their finances are secure. And I'm not sure how to do that. If you're going to add 600,000 students to the roles now that we haven't been providing funding for, it may require the largest tax increase in the history of this state. And I'm certainly not in favor of that. I am in favor of people having a vote about what their education system should look like. And I think we're starting to build accountability in the system now. One example is that the Commissioner of Education, which has been a very tumultuous relationship with the legislature over the last 8 years, now we have to public education. And the new one is a gentleman named Dr. Robbie Fletcher, very impressed with him. He speaks the same language that we did. He understands we got to make accountability system. So we're going to build systems to make sure that our public dollars being spent for publication are giving us a return on the investment that we need. But I had a superintendent tell me recently that he's glad to see this initiative because finally we can get this off the table one way or another, and we can move forward. So if it fails, then we'll still work on accountability for our public education system. If it passes, then we'll have to work to find innovative ways to make it work for everybody to still support public education and payments together, because it will always be here.
Thank you. Mr. Ballinger.
I do support that program. I think it can be a very useful tool. A lot of the schools are thinking proficient is good enough. If they start losing some money, the superintendents and administrators will start holding their teachers' feet to the fire and holding themselves to the fire, where we have to be distinguished. We have to step up our game. Our parents want to bring our kids back to the public school system. I think there's several humongous hurdles to go over. Right now, student, the average rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,100 or $4,080 per student. You add $600,000 to it, you're going to drop that down to about $2,250 roughly. So you're adding a tax burden. I think there should have been a few stipulations put in the bill, but this is one of the open-ended bills where, okay, if it's passed, we will try to make it work. That's to be seen, because it'll be on the ballot. I do want to address one thing on the last thing. 274 was what the vaccination was. 43% of 5 and 6 year olds have an allergic reaction to some of the immunization shots. If you're in a pharmacy and a tech is giving your child an immunization shot and they have an allergic reaction, are they going to know the medical procedures? There's no oxygen there. There's no healthcare provider there. You've got a pharmacist and some pharmacy techs. Let doctors do their job, let pharmacists do their job. Thank you.
Mr. Meredith, do you have a rebuttal?
I do. It's absolutely not true. Only 19% of adolescent patients have reactions to vaccines. 19%. And the risk of not having a vaccine is much greater than taking the vaccine itself. Also remind you again, there's not healthcare providers in rural Kentucky to get the vaccines. What are parents supposed to do? The only option they have is to take a day off of work, drive miles and miles and miles to get their kids vaccinated. But that number he's given, that is not correct. And pharmacists are professionals. You know, we saw that during the COVID pandemic, because the first time they were allowed to give vaccines, COVID vaccines to children up to the age of 9 and older. There was no toward events as a result of that, because these are professionals. They're going to have a written protocol from a physician before they can give that vaccine. They got to have a physician's order. So it's about as safe as you can get. Pharmacists are skilled professionals just like every other healthcare professional.
We've gone a little bit off here, but I'll allow you to have the last rebuttal on that.
You can look on my Facebook, it's published right there, 43.8% have an allergic reaction. I've got 3 friends that are pharmacists. They don't feel comfortable doing it, but they weren't asked. 43. Do you want to take that chance with your child?
Thank you. We will move on to question number 7. Question number 7 has to do with the Kentucky legislative process. Over the past 2 years, the Kentucky legislative, I'll try to speak a little bit clearer. Kentucky legislative process, and I apologize, this is for you, sir, so let me make my note. So this question is for Mr. Ballinger. Kentucky legislative process. Over the last 2 years, the Kentucky legislature has dealt with over 2,000 bills, yet the legislature is legally restricted to meet only 60 days in budget years and 30 days in non-budget years, a total of 90 days to review such a large volume of legislation. What changes would you propose to ensure that the legislature can dedicate sufficient time and attention to each bill,
thereby making more informed decisions?
That's a good question. I know there's some numbers that popped up, said there was over 1,200 bills that were proposed. From what I looked up in the LRC last night, there was 382 that were put forth in the Senate. And out of those 382, 17 come from my opponent. Out of that 17, he's only passed 4, and 3 of them were administrative bills where they correct data and language. The only way they can get away with that is when it goes to committee on committee, they have to hold themselves accountable. Literally, you have to be disciplined enough to say, this is a junk bill. You submitted it 7, 8 years in a row. It's not going anywhere, so we're not going to let it pass committee on committee. That's how a lot of useless legislation gets in, because people keep shoving it at junk. Keep shoving it at us. And literally, they get tired of seeing it, so they let it come through. Luckily, there's several people in the House and the Senate that see that. But you've got 138 people you've got to make happy. And as far as the number of bills, I think that would be limiting the ability of your legislator. You're hired to do a job, you got to stay up late and read it, you read it. You know, so be it. That's my take.
Thank you. Mr. Meredith, same question?
My first year in the legislature, 2017, I think we had 800 bills, and I commented to my seatmate, Judy Rockhouse, at the time, it's 50 bills, it's ridiculous. And she was listening to me rant and rave, and she said to me, you know, Steve, I get 38 legislators. Every bill that's filed is important to somebody, and that's true. They're all important. But it does take some self-discipline. This last session, we had 2,020 bills that were filed. We've got a lot of talk amongst our caucus about what we should do. One thing we're working on this summer is trying to get a kind of a gentleman's agreement amongst our caucus that no senator will file more than 5 bills. And that will significantly reduce it. You know, we had one senator who was kind of considered by some of our extremists to be the gold standard for senator, filed 50 bills. That's a waste of time and resources, and it makes no sense whatsoever. So by limiting ourselves to 5 bills with identifying which is the priority bill for each of us, then I think we can move the most significant legislation forward. Also within our caucus, I want to see us do a top 10 list for our legislature. We did the first couple of sessions in 2017 and 18, and that's when we passed the most significant legislation in the history of this legislature. But we've gotten away from that. So if we can get the top 10 things out of the way, then we can focus on other things. So we need to work smarter, not harder.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Mr. Ballinger?
I agree with the top 10 list. I think that will work, but me as a senator, first thing I'm going to concentrate on is my 5 districts. If it doesn't pertain to my 5 districts, it doesn't go into my top 5 list or top 10 list. I'll support somebody that's got a good bill, not a junk bill. But as me, I'm going to only sponsor or put forth bills that helps our district. A lot of these senators are putting forth bills that literally are Eastern Kentucky or far Western Kentucky. They have senators in those districts. If it's such a good bill, let them sponsor it. Thank you.
Mr. Meredith,
Well, a good deal is a matter of perception. You know, every legislator, they think their bill's a good deal, and it's there to try to serve their community, and you can't argue with that. But again, there's got to be some exercise of self-discipline amongst us, and that's what we need to work at, more leadership to do that, and have a common goal of how we want to move this state forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. I have one final question. We have about 5 minutes left in the program. So I think the way we can go ahead and get this one in, if it's okay with both of you. This is on infrastructure. Given Kentucky's largely rural composition, infrastructure development is crucial for communities throughout the state. Over the next 4 years, which types of infrastructure do you believe are most vital for Kentucky? And additionally, what specific measures would you support to enhance these critical areas? And I believe this is for you, Mr.
Well, this really is a new topic. Infrastructure has always been very, very important for us, but it becomes more pronounced as we create more jobs in Kentucky. And certainly the pressure on this is to build more roads, to build a wireless internet system, which we take great pride in. You know, when we first approached this, the government was going to commit $50 million to this project. We said, no, I won't even touch it. So our legislature budgeted $350 million, and it's been transformational for us, so we need to finish that. But we need to also have additional water available for people. In this budget you see, I think we've got $185 million to be set aside for 2 different funds for clean water for communities. And on the road situation, for the first time in the history of our state, we have allocated general fund dollars to the road dollars. $450 million that we put there. And again, that comes from our savings account, and our fiscal responsibility, we're able to do that. So we're making those investments, we continue to make those investments. And as we continue to grow our economy, create more jobs in Kentucky, and reduce the tax burden for folks, we're gonna have more people live here, which means we're gonna have a greater tax base, and have more dollars available to do the very things that we're talking about. So you can't grow your state unless you do have an infrastructure. And I think we're seeing that with the budget that we passed this last session. Very strong budget for a lot of different people. Is there a thing we want to be at this point in time? It never is. There's never enough money for everything, but probably the best position that we've ever been in because the financial position is great for Kentucky.
Thank you. Mr. Ballinger.
Yes, sir.
Same question.
Well, I think you put the cart in front of the horse. Number one, you've got to have a infrastructure. You've got to have water. You've got to have utilities. And right now, you've got 2 counties out of these 5 that water is a issue. Not a $10 million expansion for an airport, not a road widening for an industrial park, or not building an industrial park. If you want to build an industrial park, you literally have to be able to support the people that are going to live in that area and work in that industrial park. Recently, we just had a water failure in Grayson County. You see it all through there. Everybody in and out water, and it's a good thing. I'm glad they got it fixed and everybody got moved in. But what happened 2 years ago when y'all ran out of water here on Christmas Day? Would they come through handing out water, asking if you do anything? It's a forgotten problem. Y'all have grown so fast, you have outgrown your water system. And that needs to be addressed because it's going to start affecting your GDP hard because nobody is going to want to invest in a community that cannot sustain their own water source. Thank you.
Mr. Meredith, rebuttal?
Yeah, I hope you heard what he said. It's just the proverbial cart before the horse. You've got to have the infrastructure in place before you recruit the industry. You really think that you all could have the infrastructure in place before we recruited people? It comes after. You got to do it in tandem. And we talked about that in great detail about the challenge that we presented in Meade County and in Brandenburg of recruiting people. That it wasn't the challenges, and we have to grow our systems and do that. Very proud that Nancy and I were able to get a $10 million allocation for Meade County and Brandenburg in the 2022 session to do that very thing. And we'll continue to advocate for that. But you can't build it and then hope they come. You got to bring them here first.
And Mr. Ballinger, final rebuttal.
$10 million is a Band-Aid for what y'all have to do. I've looked at your water plan. It's a sound water plan. But in order for y'all to sustain any type of growth or to grow any more in the future, and not only the growth issue, it breaks down to a safety issue. If we get a real hard, cold winter, say 6, 8 days into it, because usually y'all run out of water about 4 to 5 days, and somebody has a major fire, y'all run out of water, what are you going to put it out with? Snow? You have to have water. Water is an essential. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we talked earlier, that's all the questions that I have today. Thank you both for taking the time to answer those questions. I think we had a lot of good information from both of you. It's time for closing statements, and as we said when we put the coin earlier, Mr. Ballinger, I believe you will go first with your closing statement. You'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. As your next senator, infrastructure will be top of the list. You have to have water, you have to have electric, you have to have roads. You can build your industry slowly instead of dumping millions upon millions of dollars and hoping they will come. You have to develop your infrastructure where it can support it. Right now, what they kept saying about Newport, I think it was Newport, or one of the industries here, they're running an emergency water system out of the lake. You have to have an infrastructure. When it comes to the veterans, you're first. I will have your back. No ifs, ands, or buts. We've stomped the same mud holes. I will be there for you. When it comes to illegal aliens, we have to develop a better system to where they do not get IDs and they're not driving out on our roads. A friend of mine the other day got hit by somebody, no insurance, no driver's license. We have to hold them to a standard, which goes back right to having a jail system and working with the ICE where we can ship them back or send them where they need to be. I appreciate your vote. May 21st, everybody, please go vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ballinger. Mr. Meredith, your closing statement, 2 minutes.
I think it boils down to what do you want the legislature to do? I think you want to create jobs, you want to reduce taxes, you want to make sure we pay our debts, speak to the pension fund, we have to fund essential services, we want to reduce bureaucracy, we do want to improve our roads and infrastructure, and overall improve the quality of life of people that live in our communities. But the job's not done. We've made some tremendous strides over the last 8 years, but it's hard to overturn 100 years of bad policy that we've had because of the Democrats that dominated our legislature and our executive office. The job's not done. So that checklist I gave you there, I think I've done each and every one of those. I look forward to working in partnership with Representative Tate and team this move forward and meet the needs of our constituents in Lee County. And again, we want to be the strongest pro-life state in the United States. Because if you don't have respect for life, we've got nothing else to build upon. It's been an honor and pleasure to serve this last 7 years. Asking the opportunity for just 4 more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. If I can make a final statement, early voting starts tomorrow. You've heard these two gentlemen talk about what they believe are the right paths for protection. But it's most important is if you go out and vote tomorrow, whether you're here in the auditorium or if you are out in the audience, out in the over the internet, or whether you believe in early voting or if you'd rather vote on, if you believe you should only vote on election day, regardless of how you fall on that, we need you to go out and vote. It's important that you go and make your voice heard, and then understand. You'll see that we have good, solid, and safe elections in Kentucky. And I thank you both again for coming out. And for all of you out there, please go vote. And Steve, I turn it back over to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and seeing us live here at the auditorium for the Meade County High School. It's been a great debate. For those that are here in the audience, please mingle with the candidates and get to meet them before they leave tonight. And for all those out there in the internet land, thanks for tuning in to your messenger, The Messenger, Kentucky, where we bring you all the news that's the news across the 5th District for this debate. Thank you and have a great night.